Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Hey.
Why this beat so crazy?
We will make America proud again. And you try to kill our We will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, the world of politics. What's going on, family? I hope everybody is blessed, well, and healthy, man. That you're having an amazing week. You know, it is Thursday, y'all. It's almost Friday. It's almost the weekend. We hanging in there, family. But you just can't make this up. I got to get real. Yeah. They say, Rick, sir, calm down. The show just started, sir. Your blood pressure, your CCG levels, your sodium, your sugar levels, sir. Calm down. This is good, but then again, we got people falling asleep. Oh, yeah. This is where your tax money going to. Out cold. Look, out cold. Rhythm of bedtime story. Look. Out cold. Look. Drinking on sparkling water. Look. Who did this now? Who did it? Who did it now? Who did it? But we got the judge. She facing 6 to 10 years in prison. This is good. Yeah. Let us sit in there. Yeah. This is good right here. You know, these people want to take up for illegal gaming with criminals. I wish they cared this much for actual American citizens. These other people got they harboring illegals, got them in the attic and guest room. They in the backyard barbecuing. The wife come in there. She having an affair with the illegal, giving him ammunition and guns, rubbing his feet, giving him a back massage, making him all kind of pizzas and breads and soups and nachos and tacos. Unbelievable. I ain't never seen nothing like it. Yeah. Yeah, go on. Throw them in jail. Prison. Let them sit in there. Jail.
A Milwaukee judge who was arrested in her own courthouse last month has now been indicted by a grand jury.
Oh, yeah.
Judge Hannah Dugan is accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities. Prosecutors allege that she allowed this man...
Yeah, you got to go to prison. Yeah, you got to go to prison.
...who was in the U.S. illegally to exit through a jury door before he was ultimately arrested. She's now facing 2 charges, including obstruction. Judge Dugan's lawyers say she maintains her innocence. If convicted, though, she faces up to 6 years in prison.
Yeah, 6 years. That's good. That's beautiful. You got to put your hands behind your back. That's beautiful. What y'all think? Y'all let me know in the comments. That is beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, these are Democrats heroes right here. You know, these are Democrats heroes. You just can't make this up. You know. Yeah, a new sheriff is in town, and we got to do this thing the right way. The right way. Yeah, don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. You got to do things the right way now, baby. Yeah, buddy.
To dismiss these charges, I can't see any basis to do that. You can certainly disagree with her motivations, but that's not something that a judge could just assume without a trial. So my assumption is that the motion to dismiss today will be indeed turned down by the court.
I mean, what world are we in where we've got judges in America helping someone be able to, evade ICE? I mean, sneak this person out a back door of a court.
You just can't make it up. You just can't, man. But we keep winning, y'all. We just keep winning. I seen someone, Davari had posted, took another major win in court, major legal win. So let's check this out.
So President Trump woke up today to another major legal victory. Also, Democrats are suffering bad news after a new poll has been released. Medicaid cuts.
The federal judge has just backed President Trump on the use of the Alien Enemies Act for deportations. That's a rare legal victory for President Trump, and tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting ruling. Judge Haynes from the Western District of Pennsylvania wrote up a 43-page opinion, and there's a couple of things that are kind of good news and then a real practical aspect. The good news for the administration is finally have a judge basically saying we're going to give deference to the executive branch. If they designate somebody as part of a terrorist organization, we're not here to undo it. If they say they want to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, we're going to let them do it without a whole lot of scrutiny. And she basically looks at the key provision that everybody got hung up on, which is, can you call this an invasion, or can you call this a predatory incursion? That's the magic phrase. When Tren de Aragua comes into the United States like they did. And she basically says, yeah, she looks at like literally litigation from 1812, 1917, and right after World War II, and says this stuff works, but it's not really our job to second guess the executive branch. So that's a good tone. That's a good result.
Okay, so this is a huge legal victory for President Trump once again. And this is actually rare if you think about all of the federal judges who have been issuing injunctions against the president up to this point. So, yeah, this would be a victory. Now, Democrats are going to continue to claim that not only is President Trump defying court orders, he is skipping due process for illegal aliens, especially the criminals that they so strongly defend. But
I'm telling you, as bad as what these Democrats are doing, how they defend all this crap, I wish, I'm so serious when I say this, y'all. I wish they actually cared this much for actual American citizens, for we the people. Things would be totally different if they actually cared this much for actual Americans. It would be totally different.
The truth of the matter is this: enforcing immigration laws to protect national security is using the Alien Enemies Act. I mean, it is a law on the books. Now, they go on to say this as well. Take a listen.
The other thing is, the Supreme Court has said these guys, if they're in the country, established, not at the border, they have a right to some sort of hearing. She puts a time frame on that if that catches fire with other judges, that's going to be a good day for the administration. She says due process is fine if they're given 21 days to at least try to file a habeas motion. They can do that. They can challenge their designation. But those are things that can be handled very quickly by the courthouse. The judge can rule on the pleadings or have a very quick hearing that says, I'm convinced you're Tren de Aragua, goodbye. So I think overall, even though there's a few weeks of lag there, the script that she's written for the process of dealing with these deportations is actually a pretty good one for the administration.
Yeah, so again, this is great news. Now, the only thing that makes me pause is the fact that these TDA gang members, MS-13 gang members, criminal illegal aliens, should be able to get 21 days notice so they could challenge their removal. I mean, that just blows my mind. Now, this number is going to blow your mind. 1.2 trillion is the amount that the White House is reporting President Trump has been able to secure from his trip overseas. That is including Saudi Arabia and now Qatar. Take a listen.
President Trump has arrived here in the state of Qatar in Doha to sign more deals one day after Saudi Arabia pledged $600 billion into U.S. coffers. The Qataris are upping that and raising it to $1.2 trillion, including an agreement from the Emir of Qatar for more than 200 Boeing jets valued over $200 billion. Here's President Trump earlier.
Congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there. Get them out there. But I just want to thank you. We've been friends for a long time, long before politics. Well, for you it was politics. For me it wasn't, right?
Now, thanks to President Trump, Boeing has hit a one-year high in regards to their stock price. So that's good for Americans. But mainstream media isn't going to report on that. In fact, they want to frame this as President Trump is just getting his ego stroked. This is all just really a sham. I think you'll be able to hear it in their tone. Here's MSNBC. Take a listen.
But the president's intention is to make this look like a splashy, deal-laden visit to the Middle East, where in each of the places he is arguing that he is committing economic opportunity that will bring jobs in the United States, bring investment in the United States, in some cases giving opportunities for American businesses here in the Middle East.
The president has been reveling in the glitzy receptions he has received across this region so far. First in Saudi Arabia, where there was a fighter jet escort for Air Force One that arrived in Riyadh today. Another fighter jet escort there.
Every time I see him, I think about that clip, that famous clip of him just getting completely destroyed by Trump in his first term. Oh, man. Such a masterpiece. If you know, you know.
In Riyadh, he was greeted by Arabian horses, here by a contingent of camels. The president certainly enjoying the personal relationships he has with some of the leaders in this country, including, of course, with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah, so her attitude is that we don't have any information on where the money is coming from, what it's actually being invested in, even though the White House put out a fact sheet, which I'm going to show you how it adds up to $1.2 trillion. Now, factoring in the $600 billion from yesterday, is $600 billion from Qatar is what is in this sheet here. So already starting with the $243 billion between the United States and Qatar for buying Boeing aircraft, $8.5 billion for Qatar Energy in their infrastructure, $97 billion for Parsons, where they're going to have 30 projects. Also, you have $1 billion from a joint venture agreement there. You got another $1 billion from Raytheon, $2 billion for General Atomics, $38 billion in regards to potential investments, including support for burden sharing at the air base. The bottom line is it's $600 billion if you round it all up, which equals the $1.2 trillion. Can someone please send this to MSNBC?
The president was looking forward to signing this deal, as he is looking forward to signing more agreements as he continues his trip to the United Arab Emirates tomorrow, and then you'll head back to Washington. But as they set out on this trip in the beginning of the week, the White House told us that it was all about business, 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 and they were hoping to return to Washington with $1 trillion in investments in the United States. Nicole.
So another successful day for President Trump and our country, and I would say another terrible day for Democrats, because now they
in the fake news media, they just can't get it right. You know, again, they don't want to report on the actual wins, on anything good or positive. It's just the same rhetoric, lies, propaganda, the fear mongering, same crap. You know, they got their priorities and focus so much on the jet, the gift. People are sad and pathetic, man. And everything Trump does, and then Trump does something that they talked about for years, and Trump actually does it. But when he does it, he's the bad guy. He's still the bad guy. The same thing you advocated for, Trump did it. But he's the bad guy, though. What? Wait. You were praising Obama when he did this, but Trump just did it. He's the bad guy, too? Oh, okay. And we read your real birth certificate, Barry. Them Patriots seen that real birth certificate, Barry. We seen it now. I'm just saying.
They have a new poll that came out from the Associated Press showing how upset the base still is at their leaders, but also Chuck Schumer, which I'll get to here shortly. But let's start with the poll itself.
Can't even cook a hamburger.
Take a look.
All right, well, let's get to the poll. This is a new Associated Press NORC poll. Democrats very or somewhat optimistic about their party's future. 35% said yes. That's down from 57% in July of 2024. Voters, by and large, don't think that the Democrats are fighting hard enough against Donald Trump, despite the fact that the reason why he's president, the reason why he won all the battleground states and the majority of the American vote is because people wanted the policies that he's pursuing.
Well, listen, I'm not shocked by that number. I'm sure you're not either. And I agree with him. But let me add on to this, okay? I think the reason why this number is low, and I think it will continue to be low, because think about it from a mindset point of view. They've been brainwashing their base to believe that President Trump is Hitler. He's the worst thing next to the devil, that he is killing this country. And if you continue to repeat that over and over and over again, people who don't think for themselves will start to believe it. And if they believe it...
I was one of those ones a couple years ago. Yeah. Then I started thinking for myself, doing my own research. Stop listening to family and friends and people that have no idea about anything that's going on. You know? And they just sound illiterate, ghetto, ignorant, and just plain on stupid. Yeah, had to block out all that crap. Yeah, had to throw that out there, y'all.
I mean, how do you think they actually feel right now emotionally that he's the president? Some of these people are depressed. And that also explains why Chuck Schumer has hit an all-time low on his approval rating. Take a look.
In terms of who voters in the Democratic Party like, this is really sort of indicative of where they might be going. Take a look at this. Do you have a very or somewhat favorable opinion of, or somewhat very unfavorable opinion of Bernie Sanders? Favorable, 75%. AOC, 55% favorable. Chuck Schumer, 35%. There's the future of the party there. Socialism.
Okay, let me just take a moment.
And yet still retains this popularity. That Democrat Party establishment worked so hard to prevent him from getting the nomination in 2016, in 2020, and he still is popular. But I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing some people from outside the party who are being talked about. People are kind of tired of the options that they've been given in the Democrat Party, and just as Trump took over the Republican Party from the outside, you might see someone having more success from the outside.
So when you have Bernie Sanders and AOC having the highest approval rating in the Democrat Party, higher than Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, all of them, I think that tells you exactly where the party is at today. And I'm a firm believer that it'll have to be someone from the outside if they ever want to have a legitimate chance at winning the next election. It's the same thing with President Trump and what he did to the Republican Party. Now, speaking of Bernie Sanders, this takes us to our next story, which is really the big news of today. Is you have all these hearings on Capitol Hill. It's all about the FY26 budget. And the main talking point is the Medicaid cut. So here is Bernie Sanders himself, once again, getting into an oligarchy exchange with RFK Jr. about this. Take a listen.
Is throwing 13 million Americans off of the health care they have, poor and working class people, keeping America healthy.
Well, I haven't seen that number. I've seen the number 8 million. And here the people, the cuts are not true cuts. The cuts are eliminations of waste, abuse, and fraud.
How many times do we have to repeat it?
And I can go through. I can go through the people who will lose it. There are a million people,
I really don't mean to be rude, but as you know, I have a very limited amount of time.
You ask a question, I'm going to answer it.
Well, yeah, I've got a bunch of questions that I would like you to answer as well.
That little short clip is exactly how today has been in all of these congressional hearings. Because
just as we expected.
Because it's about reviewing the FY26 budget. It's also about Democrats and their obsession with claiming that Republicans are going to cut entitlement benefits for Americans, that will put our citizens on the streets, and 13 million souls will lose health care. That's what they're saying. And so it takes us to CNN joining in on the fun. And it's interesting how they do this poll. They don't even say or ask people, hey, do you support the federal government rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse, particularly illegal aliens who are drawing from Medicaid? They ask, do you support Medicaid cuts? Take a listen.
Harry, what do Americans think of these proposed potential cuts to Medicaid we're looking at here?
The politics of this are so bad, it literally blows my mind. That is what the American people think of this. Major spending cuts to Medicaid. Look at this. 76% oppose. Just 24% favor major federal spending cuts to Medicaid. To give you an idea of how big this 76% is, in a separate poll I looked at it, George Washington's favorable rating is 78%. Basically, the exact same percentage of Americans who are opposed to major cuts to Medicaid on the federal level. As I said, the politics of this are so extremely bad, it blows my mind, Kate.
That is overall. What about amongst Republicans? Because Republicans are obviously the party in the majority and advancing this need to cut some $880 million from Medicaid.
Okay, so we see this 76% overall. You see it over here. Oppose major spending cuts to Medicaid on the federal level. You get 95% of Democrats opposed, 79% of independents, and you even get a majority of Republicans. 55% oppose major spending cuts to Medicaid. This, simply put, is not popular on any part of the aisle, from the left all the way to the right, the opposition is in the majority. When you get a majority of Republicans, a majority of independents, a majority of Democrats to agree on anything, you know that is where the American public stands, and they stand strongly. And on this particular issue, they stand very strongly opposing major spending cuts to Medicaid. The politics of this, simply put, are atrocious.
Of course it is. And everybody knows that. That's why CNN asked the question that they did. That's not the actual question. Yeah. The question is, do you support the federal government rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse from Medicaid, particularly illegal aliens who are drawn on this program and able bodies like younger adults who are able to work? But the fact of the matter is, CNN is supporting Democrats in this whole narrative that President Trump is going to cut Medicaid and then give tax cuts to billionaires, which takes us back to this exchange between RFK Jr. and Bernie Sanders, where RFK Jr., I guess, hits him with some common sense.
There are $235 billion in tax breaks for the top 0.2%. Do you think that makes sense when that same bill would throw 13 million people off of Medicaid? Should we give tax breaks to billionaires and throw kids and others off of Medicaid?
You're conflating the congressional bills with proposals from the president. The president
No, I'm talking about the congressional bill. I'm talking about the bill, the reconciliation bill.
I mean, the president is not trying to do tax cuts for billionaires. He's trying to have no tax on tips and no tax for
$235 billion by
how many people, how many billionaires do you know that are making overtime or making any part of the
$235 billion. Look, it's a big bill. There are a lot of provisions in it, but you cannot deny the top 0.2% will get $235 billion in tax breaks while we cut Medicaid.
Yep, that's how it goes. You know, Bernie Sanders, even though, as you guys seen earlier, he's popular, this guy is full of it, okay? I mean, when you're trying to conflate, like RK Jr. was saying, with two separate situations, it shows you how disingenuous they're being here. And furthermore, you would want the president to pass no tax on overtime and tips for the working class. Again, what billionaire is earning overtime? That's such a phenomenal question. But more importantly, Republicans want to reform Medicaid. And what does that mean? Get illegal aliens out of it. That's number one. And number two, if you're 27 years old, why are you on Medicaid? Right? I mean, come on. Can we be real here? Now, here's Sean Spicer on News Nation making the same point. Take a listen.
But I do want to correct you, Nicole. I hate to do it because it's your show. But when you reform a program to make sure that people who are ineligible to receive benefits or keeps illegals from getting taxpayer-funded benefits, that's not cuts. That's common sense reform.
But I
don't
think
think
the
it should
concern
actually
is
be a partisan issue.
that it would be people who are eligible who would end up being hurt as well. That is
I understand. Right. Right. No, I understand the talking points from the left and this faux outrage. But the reality is the bill goes after people who are able-bodied, that are abusing the program that wasn't intended for, or are illegally receiving benefits. Those are not cuts. That's actually common sense reforms that both parties should be on. In fact, I was amazed to see over the weekend, Sunday night, 60 Minutes, not exactly a conservative-leaning program, did a whole segment on the fact that there are upwards of $750 billion of improper payments going out the door right now. Again, this isn't a partisan issue. It's not a right-left. It's not a Republican-Democrat, conservative-liberal. It is common sense. And at some point, considering that we're $36 trillion in debt and run a $2 trillion a year deficit, it makes sense for both parties to get our fiscal house in order and making common sense reforms so that taxpayer money's not wasted and that we're not continuing to pile up debt.
That entire take from Sean Spicer should just be played on repeat when Democrats start crying about Medicaid cuts, because it's just not the truth. And unfortunately, what frustrates me the most is that I know older people in our country, they listen to cable news, and cable news is on repeat, scaring the heck out of them with this entire Medicaid cut hoax. You honestly think both the House and the Senate Republicans are going to pass a bill cutting Medicaid? That is political suicide. And let's not forget, President Trump has kept his promises. He has promised not to do this. You think he's going to sign a bill with Medicaid cuts? Come on. Now, here is Speaker Johnson also answering questions about this.
And as we're working to get this done, House Democrats are working overtime to deceive the American people about this. We've discussed it already this morning, but they're not talking about what the bill actually does. They're using talking points that are pretty stale. They're not afraid to lie about what's in it, and we're not afraid to tell the truth about what the Democrats are doing. They've already been forced to take down their advertisements because they were filled with falsehoods about what the bill supposedly was going to have in it. You probably saw last week, they're at it again. They released a CBO report, so-called, that claims that our legislation cuts many millions of Americans out of Medicaid. It's obviously demonstrably false. Other outlets have reported on this, okay? They included policies that are not even in the legislation. How could they have done that? Because they released the report before the bill text was issued, okay? And most of the media ran with that, okay? And I'm just going to say this to my friends in the media, on the Hill Press Corps in particular, right? If you allow Democrats to make these intentionally false claims without pushback, then you're aiding and abetting in the spread of misinformation. I mean, I'm stating the obvious. The job is to get the facts out there, so we hope you will. We said repeatedly, we are protecting Medicaid for the people who need and deserve it. This program is an essential lifeline for our most vulnerable Americans, pregnant women, single mothers, low-income seniors, the disabled. That's who Medicaid is intended to be for, and that's who we're protecting, while we're eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse to improve Medicaid.
Listen,
all right, Mike, we almost walked you out. On your lunch break, Mike, we almost walked you out. Yeah, we almost walked you out, Mike. That Diet Coke, that Diet Mountain Dew in your hand. We almost walked you out. Stay sharp. Stay sharp, man. But the world of politics. And there's also one clip I want to play, and it's trending right now too. Miss Amy Coney Barrett. And let me read some of these captions. Amy Coney Barrett has proven once again she may be the worst Supreme Justice pick ever by a Republican. She has a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court because of Donald Trump. Yet you can hear her disdain for the Trump administration. Check this out, y'all. And this one says, Justice Barrett was a huge mistake. Her contempt for the Trump administration is obviously in her line of questioning. Check this out, man.
Opinions and judgments here. Did I understand you correctly to tell Justice Kagan that the government wanted to reserve its right to maybe not follow a Second Circuit precedent, say, in New York, because you might disagree with the opinion?
Our general practice is to respect those precedents, but there are circumstances when it is not a categorical practice. It is, and that is not
this administration's practice or the longstanding practice of the federal government. And I'm not talking about in the Fourth Circuit, are you going to respect a Second Circuit? I'm talking about within the Second Circuit. And can you say, is that this administration's practice or a longstanding one?
As I understand it, longstanding policy of the Department of Justice. Yes, that we generally, as it was phrased to me, generally respect circuit precedent, but not necessarily in every case. And some examples might be a situation where we're litigating to try and get that circuit precedent overruled and so forth.
Well, okay, so I'm not talking about a situation in which, the Second Circuit has a case from 1955 and you think it's time for it to be challenged. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in this kind of situation. I'm talking about this week, the Second Circuit holds that the executive order is unconstitutional, and then what do you do the next day or the next week?
Generally, we follow those.
So you're still saying generally?
Yes.
And you still think that it's generally the policy, longstanding policy of the federal government to take that approach?
That is my understanding.
Okay, but it sounds to me like you accept a Cooper versus Aaron kind of situation for the Supreme Court, but not for, say, the Second Circuit. Like where you would respect the opinions and the judgments of the Supreme Court, and you're saying you would respect the judgment, but not necessarily the opinion of a lower court.
And again, I think in the vast majority of instances, our practice has been to respect the opinion as well, in the circuits as well, but my understanding is that has not been a categorical practice in the way respect for the precedents and the judgments of the Supreme Court has been.
So you're not hedging at all with respect to the precedent of this court?
That is correct. I believe the quotation from our application directly addresses that, and we stand by that completely.
Okay.
We're going to do a little deep dive on that. Separate video for that, so y'all be ready. It's not, the first time Miss Amy Coney Barrett has been trending in the last couple of months. Not been looking good, man. But hey, we live to fight another day. It's gonna be more wins. You know, we're rooting for America. We're rooting for this administration. We send our prayers to Trump and this administration. I want to send my prayers and love to you guys. Let me know what y'all think about everything, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace and love, you guys.